All right, so we're diving into this article about Jimmy Butler,
Okay.
and it's called "The Unstoppable Force: Defying NBA Analytics and Redefining Greatness."
Mm.
And I think what makes this deep dive really fascinating is that we're gonna kind of explore this question of, can greatness really be measured by statistics alone,
Right.
or are there these intangible qualities that just completely defy algorithms and all the ways that we're used to?
Yeah, it's interesting because this topic goes way beyond basketball.
Right.
Makes you think about how we measure success in any field, really.
Yeah.
Do we rely too heavily on these quantifiable metrics,
Yeah.
or are we overlooking essential qualities that you can't really categorize?
And the article uses Jimmy Butler's recent trade to the Golden State Warriors as a prime example.
Yeah.
So, the Warriors were struggling at the 2025 trade deadline.
They were.
They were on the brink of collapse, actually. And then, boom, they trade for Butler.
Right.
And it seemed like a perplexing move to many people.
If you look at it from a purely numbers perspective,
Right.
most analysts were baffled.
Yeah.
Because Butler's stats, 17 points, 5 rebounds, 5 assists per game,
Right.
that's not really screaming superstar.
Right.
Even the advanced metrics didn't really paint him as a game changer.
Yeah. NBA 2K didn't even rank him in the top 40 players.
Exactly.
But here's where it gets interesting.
Yeah.
Golden State goes on a 10-game winning streak with Butler.
Crazy. Right.
Completely transform from a team on the verge of implosion to a serious championship contender.
I mean, it's almost as if the traditional methods of evaluating players,
Right.
they just fell short
Yeah.
in capturing his true impact.
Exactly. And the article attributes this to something they call the dog factor.
Okay, interesting.
And it's not about being an actual dog,
Right.
but it's more about possessing these intangible qualities like grit and determination
Right.
and this almost contagious will to win.
Those are the qualities that you can't really
Right.
put a number on.
Ex-
And that can really inspire teammates,
Yeah,
demoralize opponents.
totally.
It's almost like the fuel that propels players beyond their perceived limitations.
Yeah. And I love how the article illustrates this with these vivid anecdotes from Butler's career.
Okay, yeah, like what?
So, remember the 2020 NBA Finals when he put up a 40-point triple-double against LeBron James and the Lakers?
Oh, yeah.
He didn't even hit a single three-pointer,
Wow.
but he just carried the heat on his back.
He did?
And even his trash talk to LeBron, "You're in trouble."
Oh, wow.
That just speaks volumes about his audacity and unshakable confidence.
Yeah.
He thrives under pressure.
Yeah.
And that energy just seems to ripple through the entire team.
For sure.
And don't forget his leadership during the 2023 playoffs.
Right.
When he led the 8th-seeded Miami Heat to upset the top-seeded Milwaukee Bucks.
Yeah, I mean, talk about David slaying Goliath.
It really did feel like that.
Yeah, these examples really suggest that there's something more at play
Right.
than just what we see in box scores.
Yeah, totally.
And it's like Butler's impact extends beyond his own individual performance.
Yeah.
He elevates the game of everyone around him.
I'm curious to hear more about how exactly he does that.
Yeah.
Because if we can understand the mechanics of the dog factor,
Yeah.
maybe we can start to identify it and cultivate it in other players,
Yeah.
even if the numbers don't initially jump out at us.
Yeah, that's a great point. And it's something we'll explore further.
Okay.
But before we jump into that,
Okay.
I think it's worth taking a closer look at how this dog factor has manifested throughout Butler's entire career.
Yeah.
Because you'll recall he's been underestimated at almost every step of the way.
You're right.
So,
Yeah, let's trace that underdog narrative.
Okay.
And see how it ties into this idea of defying conventional metrics.
yeah.
Because maybe, just maybe, Butler's story can teach us to look beyond the numbers
Mm-hmm.
and appreciate the power of intangible qualities,
Right.
not just in basketball, but in all aspects of life.
Yeah, I love that. Let's get into it.
So we're really diving deeper into this whole dog factor thing.
Yeah.
And it's fascinating to me how Jimmy Butler's entire career,
Right.
it's been marked by this constant need to prove himself.
Yeah.
He thrives on exceeding expectations.
And what's really striking is that his entire journey
Yeah.
from high school to the NBA,
Right.
it's practically a textbook example of the underdog narrative.
Right.
Unranked high school recruit,
Yeah.
last pick in the first round of the NBA draft,
Bah.
traded multiple times throughout his career.
Right.
And each time he seemed to use that doubt as fuel.
It makes you wonder if those experiences actually shaped his leadership style. Maybe overcoming those obstacles gave him this unique perspective on how to inspire and motivate others.
Yeah, That's a really insightful observation.
Yeah.
It's almost as if Butler embodies this idea that true leadership
Right.
isn't about being handed a position of authority,
Right.
but it's about earning respect through resilience and hard work.
Totally. And it seems to be working.
Yeah.
I mean, think about his impact on players like Bam Adebayo in Miami
Right.
and now Steph Curry in Golden State.
Right.
Like, both players, saw significant improvements
For sure.
after playing alongside Butler.
Yeah, and it raises an important question.
Yeah.
How exactly does Butler elevate his teammates?
Right. What is it?
Is it mentorship?
Right.
Setting a high standard?
Yeah.
Fostering a competitive but supportive environment?
That's what I'm really curious about because, the article mentions that Butler is known for his intense work ethic and his demanding approach to practice.
For sure.
So maybe his teammates just see that dedication and they feel compelled to step up their own game.
Right.
Like match his energy.
Yeah, and there's also the psychological aspect of it too.
Right.
Imagine playing alongside someone who's constantly exceeded expectations,
Right.
who's never backed down from a challenge. That kind of presence can be incredibly motivating.
Yeah, it's like having a living example of what's possible
Exactly.
if you combine talent with unwavering determination.
And remember,
Yeah.
even NBA 2K, with its sophisticated algorithms,
Right.
they didn't even rank him in the top 40.
It really makes you question, like,
Yeah.
is the dog factor something that can't even be fully captured by data?
Right.
Okay, but here's a counterpoint.
Okay.
Couldn't you argue that the dog factor might be overemphasized?
Okay.
Like, after all,
Yeah.
basketball is a game of skill and strategy, too.
Right.
You can't just win on grit alone.
Of course not.
Right.
You're right to bring that up.
Yeah.
It's not an either-y situation.
Right.
You need both.
Yeah,
You need talent, basketball IQ, those are essential.
for sure.
But I think what we're seeing with Butler is that those intangible qualities,
Right.
they can be the difference maker.
Especially in, like, high-pressure situations. So
Okay.
it's like saying
Yeah.
they amplify the existing talent and strategic thinking
Right.
to create this, like, multiplier effect
Exactly.
that leads to these unexpected results.
And it challenges the notion that we can just neatly categorize players
Right.
and predict success based solely on these quantifiable metrics.
And I think this is where the discussion gets really interesting.
Yeah.
Because it forces us to confront the limitations, like, of our current evaluation systems.
For sure.
Like, are we using the right tools?
Yeah, and,
Yeah.
are we potentially missing out on hidden gems?
Right.
Players who might not have the flashiest stats,
Right.
but possess that heart and determination
Right.
to make a real impact.
So how do we bridge that gap?
Right.
How do we start to incorporate those intangible qualities into our assessments
Yeah.
without falling into the trap of subjective bias?
That's the million-dollar question.
Right.
And I think it requires a shift in perspective.
Okay.
We need to move beyond simply looking at what a player does on the court and start to consider how they do it, what drives them,
Yeah.
and how they influence the dynamics of the team.
This reminds me of something the article touched upon.
Right, yeah.
This idea that Butler's dog factor isn't just about him as an individual,
Right.
but about his ability to create a culture of excellence
Yes.
within a team.
And that's something that's incredibly difficult to measure
Right.
with traditional metrics.
Yeah.
It requires a more nuanced understanding of team dynamics, leadership styles, and the subtle ways in which players impact each other's performance.
It sounds like we're talking about a more holistic approach
Exactly.
to evaluating talent.
Yes.
One that acknowledges, like, the complexities of human behavior
Right.
and the power of those intangible qualities.
Precisely. And
Yeah.
while it might be more challenging to quantify these aspects,
Right.
I believe it's essential if we truly want to understand what drives success.
Yeah.
Not just in basketball, but in any field
Right.
where collaboration and leadership are key.
So as we enter the final part of our deep dive,
Okay.
I'm really curious to hear your thoughts on how this, like, evolving understanding of the dog factor might impact the future of basketball.
Okay.
Like, will we see teams start to prioritize these intangible qualities
Right.
in their scouting and recruitment processes?
That's a great question. And I think it's one that many teams are already grappling with.
So as we kind of wrap up our deep dive into Jimmy Butler and this dog factor,
Yeah.
it really feels like we're at this, like, crossroads in how we evaluate talent.
Totally.
And not just in basketball,
Right.
maybe in, like, all fields.
It's interesting because this conversation really challenges us
Yeah.
to reconcile these two seemingly opposing forces, this
Yeah.
increasing reliance on data-driven analysis
Right.
and the undeniable impact of intangible qualities.
Right.
Grit, leadership, this will win.
It's like we're trying to figure out how to bridge the gap between what we can measure and what we can feel. Right.
What we see in the stats and what we actually witness on the court, in the locker room. And during those, crucial moments when the game is on the line.
Think about how Butler's career has unfolded.
Right.
The traditional metrics never fully captured his impact.
Yeah.
Yet he consistently exceeded expectations.
He did.
Proved doubters wrong time and time again.
And it's not just about his individual performance either.
Right.
He has this almost uncanny ability to elevate the game of those around him.
And if we kind of connect this back to what we were discussing earlier, Butler's time with the Miami Heat provides a compelling example.
He does.
Bam Adebayo's transformation into an all-star.
Yeah.
The team's unexpected run to the NBA Finals.
Right.
These achievements point to this collective synergy that goes beyond individual stats.
It's like his dog factor became contagious.
Right.
Inspiring his teammates to push beyond their limits. And now we're seeing a similar phenomenon with the Golden State Warriors.
Right.
Steph Curry, who many thought was on the decline.
Yeah.
He's experiencing a resurgence playing alongside Butler.
It's true.
The team that was once on the brink of collapse is now a serious championship contender.
Makes you wonder if teams are starting to recognize the value of these intangible qualities.
Yeah.
Even if they don't show up in the traditional metrics.
Right.
Are we witnessing a shift in how talent is evaluated?
I think there's definitely a growing awareness that success, particularly in these team-oriented environments, requires more than just raw talent or a high basketball IQ.
But how do we measure these qualities?
Yeah.
How do we identify the next Jimmy Butler if the numbers don't tell the whole story?
This raises a really important question about the future of scouting and player development. Perhaps it requires a more holistic approach.
Okay.
One that incorporates data analysis with insights gleaned from interviews, observations of practice habits, assessments of leadership potential.
Yeah, it sounds like we need to evolve our understanding of what constitutes a valuable player.
I think so.
You know, it's not just about points scored or assists made, but it's about the impact a player has on the team's overall dynamic.
For sure.
Their ability to inspire, motivate, elevate those around them.
And maybe, just maybe,
Yeah.
this conversation about the dog factor extends beyond basketball.
Ooh, I like that.
What if we apply this thinking to other fields?
Right.
Could we unlock hidden potential by looking beyond traditional metrics of success
Right.
and considering those intangible qualities that really drive exceptional performance?
I think that's a really powerful idea to leave our listeners with.
Yeah.
So as we wrap up this deep dive, we encourage you to think about those unsung heroes in your own life. Those individuals who might not always get the recognition they deserve, but who possess that dog factor, that grit, determination, that unwavering belief that inspires others to reach new heights.
It's beautiful.
What if we started to value those qualities as much as we value the numbers on a spreadsheet?
That's a great question to ponder.
Yeah, it's a thought-provoking challenge.
It is.
And one that might lead to some really surprising discoveries.
For sure.
So thanks for joining us on this journey into the world of Jimmy Butler and the dog factor.
It's been a pleasure.
And until next time, keep exploring. Keep questioning.
Yes.
And remember that sometimes the most valuable qualities are the ones that can't be easily measured.
Couldn't agree more.